Massive changes are coming to college football, and Syracuse, they got to be ready. So here's what they got to do as soon as possible.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. Thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on tonight's edition of Locked On Syracuse, we are discussing some of the big changes that are happening in college football with not one, not two, but three big-time powerhouse programs, big-time national brands, all having openings at head coach. How this could affect Syracuse, what's going on with Fran Brown, and what Syracuse football must do as soon as possible. We'll dive into all of it and more here on tonight's edition of Locked On Syracuse. And before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So first and foremost, we got to discuss the big changes going on in college football and really what is to come. And of course, I am referring to how wild this offseason is going to be. And I know you might comment, you might think, and you might be saying, Jackson, you're exaggerating, clickbait, this, that, and the other. Can we just admit that this could be a pretty crazy offseason? Not necessarily in Syracuse land, but you got the LSU job that's open. Florida head coach is open. And you got Penn State that is also open. That's right, LSU, they let go of Brian Kelly. Florida lets go of Billy Napier. That one was definitely deserved as a Florida fan as well as a Syracuse fan. Grew up a Florida Gators fan. And of course, Penn State in the state of Pennsylvania, not too far from Syracuse University, they let go of James Franklin after a couple of, let's say, pretty embarrassing losses. UCLA, Northwestern, yeah, you can't lose to those programs after having a reputation of not really being able to win a big game as far as LSU is concerned. Look, Brian Kelly wins, but I don't know what it is with Brian Kelly and LSU, but they're just having problems, and they are deciding to go their separate ways. That's not my issue. That's more their problem. But regardless, three big-time programs open. But what else could happen? Florida State with Mike Norvell. Are they going to keep him? I'm not convinced by it. I don't care that they sent out a letter of confidence or whatever that may be. I'm not convinced that he's sticking around. NC State could become available. Dave Doran, I don't know if they're going to make a bowl this year. He's been there quite a while. It looks like they might be ready for some change. There's also other jobs open. Virginia Tech is open. UCLA is open. Those aren't small programs. There are a lot of changes that are about to happen in college football. It's shaping up to be a pretty wild offseason. And think about the ripple effect. This is really the important part. The ripple effect of everything going on right now. We know the big three jobs. LSU, Florida, Penn State, and likely in that order. I'd say LSU 1, Florida 2, Penn State 3. They're all going to hire a head coach. And they're not the type of programs where, oh yeah, we'll just promote someone from within. You know, we just fired Brian Kelly. Let's go promote our other coach to make him a full-time head coach. Or at Florida, yeah, we just got rid of Billy Napier, but hey, we'll hire, I don't know, this guy from our staff currently to be our head coach. They're not going to do that. They're going to look elsewhere. Chances are they're going to poach someone pretty big, at least one of those three programs, if not all three of them. And to demonstrate really the insanity of what is to happen, I mean, Lane Kiffin is pretty much the number one name on the LSU and Florida coaching candidates right now. He's currently at Ole Miss. So if LSU or Florida poaches Lane Kiffin, Well, then the Ole Miss job is open. And that's a pretty big time job as well. Who knows what's going to happen in Vandy with how successful they've been? Is someone going to take a look at Clark Lee or John Summerall at Tulane? The possibilities of this offseason are endless. And how long are these programs going to wait to fill their head coaching openings? Early signing day, which is when most prospects will sign with their team in recruiting, of course, is December 4th, and it runs until December 6th. That's right after the regular season ends. Are these programs going to wait till after? You also got the college football playoff. I mean, what if Ole Miss is in the college football playoff? Are these programs going to wait out on Lane Kiffin, or are they just going to look elsewhere? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, to be honest with you. How about the transfer portal? Opens up January 2nd, ends on January 16th. Point is, how long are these programs actually going to wait until they fill their head coach positions? We know where it's going to start: LSU, Florida, Penn State. But then who are they going to take? And then those programs are going to have job openings. So who are those programs going to take? See what I mean? Florida hires Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss. Ole Miss now needs a head coach. Ole Miss, they hire a head coach. That program that they just poached from needs a head coach, and so on and so forth. It is a chain reaction. It is insanity. This is shaping up to be a pretty wild offseason of college football. Now, the good news with Syracuse, yes, finally we're going to relate this all to Syracuse, is that chances are this is going to actually positively affect Syracuse. It probably will. Recruiting instability around the nation when Syracuse currently has one of the best recruiters in the country in Fran Brown. I mean, that's music to all of our ears. That's fantastic. Because all those programs that are kind of in flux right now, they got some pretty good athletes, and you never know who could potentially become available. And with Fran Brown recruiting, that anything is possible. He can get anyone from anywhere to come play for Syracuse University. I mean, after all, he got Calvin Russell from Miami's backyard. 5-star recruit, 5-star wide receiver, could play anywhere in the country. He chose Syracuse. He chose Fran Brown. We know he can do it. In fact, it's already started to work in Syracuse's favor. We didn't do a podcast on it, and my apologies on that. We had a lot of podcasts, and there's only so much time during the day. But Syracuse did pick up a Penn State decommit in the class of 2026, and I'm referring to Alexander Haskell. He is a 3-star defensive lineman, 6'4", 265 pounds. He's rated 630 nationally, top 80 defensive lineman in the country per 24/7 Sports. And we also broke down here on Locked On Syracuse how they're also getting a lot of visits from former Penn State players that were committed there. Keemon Spell, the running back, for example, 5-star player in the class of 2027, visiting Syracuse. He was committed to Penn State, not anymore. So chances are the wildness of the offseason is going to benefit Syracuse football. But coming up, we will go over exactly what Syracuse football must do as soon as possible so they can get ready to take advantage of this offseason. Once again, Jackson Holzer, Locked On Syracuse. Thank you for joining me here on this late night edition of the Locked On Syracuse podcast, and still plenty more to come here on Locked On Syracuse. College football is here, and it's honestly fantastic. The tailgates, the rivalries, energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the actual game. I mean, you got endless queues, hidden fees, and my personal favorite, prices jumping at the checkout. Really? That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to store last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you are going to pay. And honestly, with Game Time, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. We just went over how there are a lot of changes that are about to happen in college football when you have the LSU head coach job open, the Florida head coach job open, and the Penn State head coach job open as well. And who knows how they're actually going to fill those positions, who they're going to snatch away. Are they going to go NFL? They're going to go coordinator? Probably not a coordinator, but they might go NFL. They might poach from your favorite team. Who knows? What does Syracuse football need to do now? And that's what we're going to dive into in just a moment. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb. Okay? I'm going to take a guess. Shot in the dark. I have no clue how you actually feel about this. Wink, wink. And say this. I think you guys want Fran Brown to remain the head coach of Syracuse football. Is that a crazy take? You probably like Fran Brown. You want him to stay. I mean, look, I've criticized him before here on Locked On Syracuse, and he will continue to get criticized on Locked On Syracuse. It's just bound to happen. It's part of the job. And I am not walking it back. I don't walk back my criticism of Fran Brown, but I've also said many times on this podcast that I do believe in him and that I do think he is the right coach for this program, and that ultimately I see the vision. And then I'm not letting this 2025 season, notice how we really haven't talked about this season of Syracuse football. I'm not letting this year overshadow what I think is to come for Syracuse football. I see what Fran Brown is building. That is why Syracuse football must extend Fran Brown as soon as possible. This is a non-negotiable. If you are Syracuse football and you are looking around the landscape of college football, you got to get ahead of this. And hopefully they are. Hopefully an extension is basically already agreed upon. Wouldn't that be great if that were true? I have no idea. But that's what Syracuse football needs to do now. They must extend Fran Brown. Why? We'll go over that in just a moment. But first, I am confident that Fran Brown will not be offered one of the big three head coach positions that are currently available. I don't think LSU is going to hire him. I don't think Florida is going to hire him. And I don't think Penn State is going to hire him either. Of those three, Penn State is probably the most likely just because of proximity and the Northeast connection and all that and more resources at Penn State. So Penn State makes the most sense of those three, but I don't think any of those three are actually going to hire Fran Brown. And I am also confident that if the Ole Miss job opened up, Lane Kiffin gets snatched up from Florida LSU, that Ole Miss would also not hire Fran Brown, because the reality is Syracuse football this season is 3-5. Good luck selling those fan bases on a head coach of a Power 4 football team that could very well miss a bowl this season. In fact, it is highly likely they're going to miss a bowl. They could go 3-9. That is on the table. And I don't wish that, but it is a reality. They could go 3-9. Maybe they go 4-8. Perhaps they go 5-7. They beat North Carolina on Friday. They beat Boston College to close the regular season. So at least Syracuse, yeah, they'll lose to Miami. They lose to Notre Dame, but they beat the really bad teams of the ACC. They go 5-7 and they miss a bowl by one game. But regardless, you're not selling those fan bases on a coach that just missed a bowl at Syracuse. I grew up a Florida Gators fan. I know how 15-year-old Jackson Holzer would react to it. And I understand that most of the fan base is not Jackson Holzer at 15 years old. I am a little cuckoo. I am a little nuts. Don't worry. I understand my flaws. I get it. I'm a little crazy. But I think even the rational fans would not necessarily be on board. But us Syracuse fans, we know how good Fran Brown is and can be for this program. So reason number one, why should Syracuse football give Fran Brown an extension? It's because he's actually good. That's why. We remember last year where they went 10-3 and they won the Holiday Bowl. That's pretty nice. That shows winning. I understand it's one season, but it does show that he can build a winning team, and he did it in 1 year. We know he is a fantastic recruiter. He got 5-star wide receiver Calvin Russell to commit to Syracuse over every other school in the country. Anyone could have gotten him, but Syracuse did. He's the highest rated Syracuse football recruit in well over 2 decades, which we documented over the summer, by the way. This is also a point that I made in the summer of 2024, believe it or not, but I really haven't brought it up since. The fact that Fran Brown came to Syracuse and he convinced pretty much every star on the team to stay with the program is just a testament to how good he is at building relationships. Oronde Gadsden could have left in the portal when Dino Babers was fired. LaQuinn Allen could have done the same thing. Elijah Clark, Justin Barron nearly did. Marlo Wax could have entered the portal. And who could blame him? Because that's the trend in college sports. Your coach leaves, so do the players. You got to remake the roster. You got to remake your recruiting class. That's just this day and age of college sports. It didn't really happen with Syracuse. He kept most of the elite talent that was already there. And then, you bring in Kyle McCord, you bring in Fidel Diggs. Next thing you know, you got yourself a 10-3 team. Pretty nice year in 2024, right? I also want to talk about how Fran Brown is not afraid. He looked at his roster. He knew he needed a quarterback. He went out. He got Ricky Collins in the portal in the fall. Actually, it was in December, but regardless, it's technically the fall window. Back when there were 2 windows, there's only 1 window this time around. Thank goodness, by the way. He got Ricky Collins from LSU. Wanted to check him out, see what he's got. And he's not ever going to admit this publicly. He says it in a nice way. He says it in a way where, yeah, we got Steve Angeli because we needed more experience in the quarterback room. You want to know why he got Steve Angeli? Want to know why he really did it? We can all read between the lines. It's because he watched Ricky Collins for months. And he recognized his mistake. And I give him credit for recognizing his mistake instead of doubling down on the mistake and saying, screw it, I paid Ricky Collins. I'm going to go make him the starting quarterback and we'll see what happens. He goes, no, I made a mistake. He's not good enough. He's not ready. I'm going to go get Steve Angeli, who just became available from Notre Dame. And there's a relationship already there. He'll come in and he's going to be the starting quarterback. Yeah, I know. I'm going to say to everyone that it's a quarterback competition and that Ricky Collins is close, but we know the deal. We've watched the games. We understand Steve Angeli is the better quarterback and will probably always be the better quarterback. And he was the right guy to get. And I commend Fran Brown for that. Because how many other coaches in the country would actually have done what he did? Where they would have realized the mistake and then instead of doubling down on it, going out and getting someone else when you had the opportunity to do so. So Fran Brown is good. He's good. He's perfect for Syracuse. He wants to remain with Syracuse. Extend him. Now coming up, another reason why Syracuse must extend Fran Brown. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Locked on Syracuse, I'm Jackson Holzer. And hey, thank you so much for making it to this point of the podcast. And we got plenty more to talk about here. We got to go over another reason why Fran Brown needs to be extended by Syracuse football as soon as possible. But before we get into all of that, just want to thank you all for making it to this point of the podcast. I hope that means you enjoy Locked on Syracuse. And if you haven't done so already, please feel free, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Helps the channel grow to reach all Syracuse Orange fans. Now let's get back to the action, shall we? So I went over the ripple effect earlier on in the podcast about how, hey, LSU is going to make a hire, Florida is going to make a hire, Penn State is going to make a hire, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that at least one of those programs is going to snatch away someone from a different program. And that's going to cause potentially a chain reaction where this team snatches this coach, and then that team has to get another coach, and so on and so forth. That's how it can sometimes work in college sports. So there will be a ripple effect. Now, I'm going to give you an example right here. Trust me, it's going to relate to Syracuse right now. If you are Tulane, you have John Sumrall. You're not keeping John Sumrall if LSU wants him. It's not happening, Tulane. I'm sorry. LSU's checkbook, I don't care about the buyout with Brian Kelly. They're going to outbid you by a lot. John Sumrall, if he stays at Tulane, it's because he was either A, not hired, or B, he stayed out of the goodness of his heart. It is not because he wasn't offered significantly more money. That's for sure. So if you are Tulane and John Sumrall does get snatched up by LSU, are you calling Fran Brown or are you not calling Fran Brown from Syracuse? I'm going to give you another example. Shane Beamer at South Carolina. He could potentially leave and take the head coaching job at Virginia Tech. And Brian Smith brought this up when we had him on a mini podcast, I believe last week. He's a recruiting expert here at Locked On. He hosts the Portal podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Also hosts Locked On Florida State Seminoles. Does a lot here at the network. He brought up, hey, if Shane Beamer were to leave South Carolina, well, they're not going to get one of the big coaches that are out there. It's just they're South Carolina. It ain't going to happen. You're not going to be able to compete with LSU, Florida, or Penn State. It's not going to happen. But are you calling Fran Brown? Could that be a possibility? Now, you may say, Jackson, stop bringing this up. This is ridiculous. Fran Brown, he has said he is with Syracuse for life, and he definitely won't leave Syracuse for Tulane or South Carolina. I understand. I get it. But let me ask you this. If you're let's assume, I'm going to guess that you're probably working at a company right now. Okay. You're working at a company. Okay. And a different company, maybe a competing one, offered you a significant raise to do basically the same job. Yeah, there's going to be differences. You're going to have to work with new people. You might have to live in a new location, but you're getting significantly more money and you are still doing your same job. In the case of Fran Brown, you are still going to be the head coach. It's just with a new team and you're going to have to move, but you're going to get a lot more money to do it. Would you at least entertain it? I mean, come on. You're not going to entertain a lot more money that's being offered your way? You have to. Come on now. Point is, if you are Syracuse, you need to extend Fran Brown. And more importantly, Don't mess with the Golden Goose. There's no need to mess with him. Get to the negotiating table. Figure it out. Look what Indiana just did with Curt Cignetti. He wanted to stay at Indiana. He probably would have been offered the Penn State job, maybe the LSU job, maybe the Florida job, but he wanted to stay with Indiana. And the two sides came to an agreement. If you're Syracuse, you can do the very same thing potentially with Fran Brown. In fact, that's what I'm advocating for. Do the very same thing. There is no need to piss off the Golden Goose at the negotiating table because I have seen it, and I know I'm young. I get it. I'm 23 years old. I'm a young kid. I understand. Young adult, I should say. Come on. I got to give myself a little bit of credit here. I'm a young adult, okay? But I have seen it far too often in sports where everything's all rosy and dreamy and the two sides love each other. The player, the coach, the managers, they all love each other. It's perfect. The fit's great. The team is successful. You're happy. Everyone's thrilled. The fan base is on board. There's perfect synergy. Makes sense. Then they actually start talking contract. And all goes gone. Because the two sides can't agree. And then the two sides go their separate ways. Happens all the time in sports. Happens all the time in college football. So yeah, Fran Brown, I'm sure he does want to stay. I'm sure he doesn't want to move, that he wants to stay with Syracuse football. And I hope he really means that he wants to stay for life. But I'm not going to sit here and say, if I'm Syracuse, I'm not going to hold him to that. You got to operate like he can leave. That's the point that I am making. You got to operate with the idea that someone out there is going to call Fran Brown this offseason. We've already documented how many changes are coming. LSU, Florida, Penn State, they may not hire Fran Brown, but they're hiring someone. And then that program all of a sudden becomes available. They may call Fran Brown. And so if you're Syracuse, just get ahead of it. That's all. So why should Syracuse football extend Fran Brown? Number one, we know he's good. And number two, you got to keep him off the market. Comment your thoughts in the comment section below. If you were Syracuse, what would you do with the impending changes coming to the landscape of college football? Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening to this late night edition of Locked On Syracuse. And hey, I actually have to tease what is to come here on Locked On, right? Well, on Wednesday, Syracuse basketball is playing an exhibition game. They're going up against Pace. There will be a mini post-game reaction show to that. On Thursday, Syracuse basketball fan reaction show. So we'll go over your comments following that exhibition game, and we'll make it a full podcast, just like we did actually earlier in the day here on Monday, October 27th. And then on Friday, Halloween. Boo. And no, I'm not booing everyone. It's booing because of spooky ghosts. I'm being really corny here on this podcast. I just realized maybe it's the late night. I like late nights. Syracuse football anyway. They have a football game, of course, and they are playing North Carolina. There will be a full post-game reaction show following that game. And in the midst of all that, I know I just threw a lot of information at you. I am working on setting up a couple more podcasts as well. It's with Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House, also trying to get on Isaac Shade, the host of Locked On Tar Heels, to preview the Syracuse and North Carolina game. So hopefully those podcasts happen. If not, well, I gave you the guaranteed podcast that will happen here on Locked On Syracuse. So folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse. I'll see you all again soon.